Hello everybody, and welcome back for another episode of My Chaotic Budget. My name is Sandra, and on my channel we do all things budget related. And in this episode I thought I'd share something with you all that I am currently trying to get better at in my budgeting. So let's see what we're going to discuss. Today we are going to be discussing how you can grade your paycheck budget closeout. This is, of course, a little handout that I was able to create. It's up on my coffee website. It's free, so go ahead and download it if you'd like to use it. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. However, I am sharing with you what I'm going through, and if it can help anybody else, I hope that it does. But yeah, so I am a teacher, and a lot of the times when I'm working on my budget, I have to think to myself, okay, what can I do better? What can I improve, etc. But you also have to have benchmarks, which means you have to show if you are in areas that you need to improve, areas of concern, areas of growth, things that are actually working. So that's why I'm here to talk about how I grade my paycheck budget closeout. So of course, if you've never done that before, your first question is going to be, what is a paycheck budget closeout? So there's different things that I put together to say what it is. So for me, a paycheck budget closeout is a review and reconciliation of both the inflow and outflow of funds, which means whatever you budgeted versus what the actual expenses were. So you budgeted so much that you thought you were going to get for income, but then it's versus the actual income that you received. So that is part of the budget closeout. The other thing that you have to think of is, of course, a balancing of all expenses and deposits within all categories, which means this is you tracking. You have to make sure that you are doing as accurate of tracking as possible. That way you can balance what you had budgeted against what you had actually spent. The next thing I put here too is that a paycheck budget closeout is an identification and correction of discrepancies within each of the categories, including the inflow of funds. So you identify, okay, where did we go over budget or where did we go under budget? And then based on that, you see, okay, was it because of an error or was it because something happened, circumstances, etc.? But you have to be able to identify what went wrong or what went right within your budget. And then the last thing that I put here for a paycheck budget closeout is being able to manage your rollover by putting the remaining funds in appropriate places. So that could mean reaching your financial goals as far as in putting that rollover into savings, putting it into categories that you may have under budgeted. You may want to put it towards your retirement. Whatever your financial goals are, that is part of your your paycheck budget closeout as well, is being able to manage whatever was left over and putting it in appropriate places. Okay, so the next thing would be, well, what is the process of a paycheck budget closeout? Okay, this is my process. So this doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody, but maybe it's something to give a little bit of thought to. Okay, so first thing is to gather your data, right? Whenever you're going to assess anything, you need to make sure that you have the numbers to work with. So what did you budget, expect, or plan for each of your categories? What did you actually spend, save? These are the questions you need to be able to ask and say, okay, how did we do? And that's going to go towards your inflow, your income, your bills and fixed expenses, your variable expenses, your sinking funds, savings, and your rollover. So this is you making sure that you are tracking and you got all of the numbers that you needed, because the only way you can be able to know how well you did is if you kept track. Okay, so this is very big. This is huge. Okay, so that's this first step, is to track, is to gather your data. The next thing is identify your discrepancies. What was the cause of any differences between budget and actuals? Are the differences positive or negative? So This, of course, could mean, was there a specific circumstance during the paycheck period that could play a significant role in the outcome of your paycheck budget closeout? Was there a holiday? Was there a birthday that you didn't plan for? Was there an unexpected medical visit? Was there, a day that you worked and you got overtime, etc.? These are things that can help you identify why things were different. Then, of course, unexpected income or expenses can have a dramatic impact on how you grade your paycheck budget closeout, which means, like I mentioned, your holiday pay. If you got extra, then hey, how are you going to handle the rollover? Because you didn't plan for that. So how are you going to put that towards your financial goals? Refunds. A lot of the times you might have bought something, but you had to return it. How does that affect your budget? And how well you manage those discrepancies is going to go towards how well you grade yourself. Now, of course, you can also calculate the variances, which of course means you need to subtract your actual number from your budget number. Then you're going to divide the variances by your budget to get the percent in which you were either positive or negative. Now, I do have a couple of examples of this, so that way we can get a good idea of how we do this. So in example number 1, groceries. You budgeted $200, but you only spent $185. So then here's your budget, which was $200, your actual minus your actual, which was $185. That means you had $15 left. You were under budget, which was a positive variance. Okay, so now let's take a look at example number 2. Example number 2, groceries. You budgeted $200, but you actually spent $215. So over here, $200 is your budget minus the $215 is actual. That left you at negative $15, which means you're over budget and you're in a negative variance. Now, take a look here when getting the percent. When you get the percent, you take that variance, the 15, and you divide that by the budget, which is 200. You get 0.075. You multiply that by 100, that means you are 7.5% under budget. Over here, the numbers are the same, except you would say that this was over budget. So that's why you need to know, how are these differences occurring? Were they in the positive or were they in the negative? Okay, so now that means you need to correct any of your discrepancies. What do we mean by that? Okay, what can you do to fix any errors? Well, let's go on. Let's go on to the next page. That means, of course, in order to correct those variances, you can move funds from one category to another to help balance the budget. So if, of course, let's say that you were under budget for your groceries, but you were over budget for your spending, see how they can help each other and balance each other out. So if that still puts you in a good place, then you can grade yourself rather well. Then, of course, you want to double check your tracking. You want to make sure that there wasn't anything that you overlooked or had forgotten. A lot of the times that happens with me. I'll go through my budget and then I'll say, oh my gosh, I put that in twice. So I really didn't go over. I just wrote it in twice and I needed to correct myself in my tracking process. It doesn't hurt to double check. I know that it can seem like extra work, but if you're really serious about your budget, you'll do the extra work. So then, of course, the last thing is managing your rollover. So where do you want or need to put any remaining funds? You could, but are not limited to, place it in a category that had significant discrepancies, just like I mentioned. So if one of your categories was way over budget, then you can pull from some of the categories that were under budget. That way it helps to balance things out and you're still in a good place. Okay, the other thing you could do is you could place it into a savings account or a sinking fund for future expenses. This is really important, especially if you're trying to get a month ahead. If you're trying to get a month ahead, the best thing to do is to take all of that rollover and start putting it in a month ahead sinking fund. That's what I plan to do once I'm closer to paying off my debt, but I definitely am very, very proud of ourselves over here because we got our $1,000 emergency fund using this method. Whenever we had some rollover, we would put it to the side. We would go ahead and put it towards our debt, but we would also put it towards savings. So it's very important that you manage that rollover. Okay, the next thing I put here is, of course, you could put it towards your debt payoff or other financial goals. So let's say you need to pay down your debt. Take the rollover and put it towards a debt payment. If you are debt free, which several of you out there are debt free, which kudos to you, then you would put that rollover to other financial goals. Are you saving for a home? Are you saving for that month ahead? Are you saving to buy a car? Are you saving? Whatever your rollover is, you need to make sure that you are able to put it towards the goals that you want to accomplish. Okay, so those are the 4 things that I really think. You have to gather your data, calculate the variances, you need to review the discrepancies, what happened, and then of course manage whatever rollover you are able to get. So then of course the questions you need to ask yourself: how well did my initial budget reflect my actual needs and my spending habits? Did I get close to where things needed to be? If I didn't, if I was over budget in several categories, then I need to see how can I adjust it for next time? What can I do differently? Did I get it right on target? And do I need to keep that? Is there something coming up that I need to make adjustments for? Where can I make the adjustments? Okay, you have to be asking yourself all these questions because you never know when things are going to happen. So of course, right here, did you make necessary adjustments to your budget to accommodate unexpected expenses or income changes? Let's say that you had a day off from work and you know that you are paid hourly, that's going to be affecting your paycheck. How did you plan for that? Did you make the necessary adjustments based on the fact that you knew that you were going to be out? Now, something can happen in the middle of a paycheck period and you can say, oh my gosh, okay, this bill is coming up. I completely forgot about it. Where can I adjust my category so that I can cover that bill? It's very important that you are always aware of what you have and not be mindless, but be intentional with the money that you have available. Then, of course, you need to ask, did your spending habits align with your goals, even with variances? So even if you were under budget in one of your categories, did you put your rollover towards your financial goals? Or did you just go and spend it? I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of sometimes taking that extra money and putting it towards things that are not needed but wanted. And sometimes it's a good thing because you know what? That could do a lot with self-care. That could do with a lot of mental health. But at the same time, is it being done too often? And are we not focused on the goals that we need to accomplish? So these are questions to ask so that you can start using the grading system. And so I kind of used AI a little bit to help me with this. And so that's why I thought, oh, this would be perfect to share with everybody, because if I'm getting this, that means it's pretty much available out there to everybody to kind of see. But if you want to get an excellent, which means A+ to an A, I think that means that you have to have minimal variances across all your categories, which means you're not going too under budget, but you're also not going too far over budget in several categories. You are maintaining pretty good balance in all categories, and you're managing adjustments as they happen. And then, of course, you meet your financial goals. You paid extra towards debt. You put money in your sinking funds. You managed your rollover. I think these are really good things, which means, of course, that means you get an A, an A+. Now, a good is a B+ or B, which I sometimes like to also put as an A-, A-, sorry, not A-, minus. And it's like there's some minor variances, which means there's more than what would be expected. And then, of course, appropriate adjustments were made, but overall positive financial progress. So nothing too serious to hurt your goals. However, you had several of them in an essence that you need to be taking care of and to monitor, make an adjustment for the next time. If you get a fair or you need to give yourself a C+ or a C, this is of course moderate variances in several categories across the board. So that means that you went over budget in your groceries, you went over budget in dining out, you went over budget in spending, etc., etc. And then you didn't make any financial progress towards your goals, which means because you went over budget, you were not able to save anything. You didn't pull money aside. You weren't able to do anything that's going to help you move along financially. And of course, that means that there are potential areas of improvement in budget planning and adjustments. So you need to look at it very closely and see what you can do differently. Now, this is the grade you don't want. You don't want to get a D+ or a D. This means that there were significant variances, multiple categories, like everywhere. Your bills, your income, your variable expenses, your sinking funds, your savings, everything was just going haywire. Then, of course, that means you didn't adjust for anything that happened. You didn't make any adjustments and you just kind of let it happen. You ended up having a bill that didn't get paid, and therefore you have to pay an overdraft fee or you have to pay the late fee, etc. So you didn't do anything. And then, of course, right here, potential concerns about financial stability. How long are you going to be able to manage yourself if you continue to be at this level right here? This is the grading system that I came up with using AI. I thought it was very interesting. I think that this is what can help anyone and everyone in essence, but you can always tweak it to be something that you need for yourself. So like I mentioned, I did put this in my coffee, however you want to say it. It is for free, but it's there so that way you can use it kind of as a reference. It isn't the be all end all. It's just something that I thought that would be helpful because this is what I do when I'm going through my budget closeout. Well, I hope that helps you guys. And if you have any questions, and if I'm able to help, I'll go ahead and I'll answer. But if not, you just want to say hi, go for it. Leave it in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.